not going to be just talking to you. What we're going to do is work on your balance. Yeah? And I thought, well, there's different ways of doing this. But first, let me give you a little bit of background on how this develops, because my goal is to improve people's physical intelligence. And it's important to understand that physical intelligence is something that is the primary form of accessing the interior world, meaning your proprioception, yeah? The senses you have, telling you where you are in space, how much effort you have when you're moving, all of that. The connections you might feel to your feet, legs, all the way through the rest of your body. All of that is proprioception. And then in our head, we have our teleceptors, which give us X-ray perception, right? Our teleception of your eyes, your ears for hearing. It's, where's that Italian restaurant? It smells up the street. That kind of thing. And so, the integration of your proprioceptive self and your teleceptor self is critical for anyone, whether they want to improve at a sport, dance with a partner easier, or just get up out of a chair easily. So I'm going to give you some things to do with your feet and your ankles to start with. And the reason for that, as you probably already know, after a certain age, and it just depends on the person, so after a certain age for most people, you start to lose sensory feedback from your feet and your lower extremities. It's, you could say, difficult enough to have that loss, because it's something then that gives the person's idea of balance could be reduced severely. It could lead to fear. It could lead to a lack of confidence in ordinary movements, like just going outside for a walk. And that kind of fear is something that is emotional. So that's why you can think of psychologists actually are the ones that develop the field of movement science. Although I've been brought to countries all over the world to train physical therapists and people involved in physical medicine, but that way. That's a very different kind of thing. For example, if you're doing a balance issue and you want to see how good your balance is, you're often told stand on one leg, right? Just stand on one leg. How long can you do it? That kind of thing. Well, in all studies done everywhere, I mean internationally, that's useless. You can stand on one leg all you want, but what's going to help you if it's an uneven surface to walk on? An unexpected, slippery surface, a curb that's higher or lower than you expected, that kind of thing. So, the first thing to do to improve balance is to neurologically capture yourself. Meaning, can you capture your own feeling in your body as to how you do things? Now I know that might sound like nothing, but let me give you an example. We're going to go to an extreme. Not for yourself, but to give you the idea. You've all heard of a basketball player named Steph Curry. A few of you have? Yes? Okay. Now he's had 3 surgeries on his right ankle. 3 surgeries, that's a lot. They're not sure what to do if something happens for a 4th one. There's only so many surgeries you can have in one place. Now, what I observed is what he did. So what he did was he favored his right leg going out. That was just a movement he did. Now, if it's out there, what if it, in a certain situation of stress, it's a game, people are trying to stop him. What if he goes like that? He better know, where is that foot in relationship to the center of mass? Where is this foot in relation to the center of mass of his body? And that can happen very easily. And that happened to him to the point of severe enough that he had to have surgeries. So really what happened was he learned that it's how he used his pelvis. In other words, the leg springs out from the pelvis. You could almost look at our body like this. Famous Da Vinci thing, right? I forget the name of that. Da Vinci's Man, it's called, right? So The implication is the pelvis is the center and everything else springs out from it. So you can have sensory awareness of your feet and your ankles and improve that. But at the same time, it's important as we age to connect and coordinate what we feel in our feet and our legs and connect that to the rest of ourselves. So I was thinking, how can we do that easily with a group like yourself? So I'm going to give you something I would give a championship basketball player. Exactly the same thing. You'll be surprised how easy it is. And I thought, well, then we have to do a movement. Now, would it be of value to you if you learned to come from sitting to standing and then sitting again, easily, effortlessly? No hands, right? No hands used. Yeah? That's a balance issue. A lot of people think, oh gosh, my legs are weak. I need more strength. Well, we're not going to be working with strength. We're going to work with your coordination. Right? Which means increasing your proprioception of yourself. I'm not going to show you what to do, because the other aspect that you'll learn in movement sciences is that it's very difficult for people. It's a primitive thing to watch the teacher and then try to imitate the teacher. Yeah, that's how most of us learn to move. We watch people in our culture. Now, if you're in different cultures, because I teach in many different countries, and if you're in France, movements of the pelvis are easy. Really, people just move their pelvises nicely. It's kind of sexy. However, the limbs, no. And at the same time, if you are sitting in a cafe in Paris, an American walks by, any French person can go, oh, that's an American. Why? Because we have big houses, we have a culture that allows you to make big movements. So when you're walking, you can have a stride length that's big, you can swing your arms. There goes an American walking around in Paris. You'll never see a French person walking that way. It's contained. It's a little, you could say it's tight. It's fine. It's limited in terms of its excursion. They grow up in smaller apartments and things like that, right? So there's differences like that. In Japan, entirely different. The way that they move is really almost, if you thought of a geisha, well, men learn this too, but because it's cultural. It's monkey see, monkey do in your culture. And so they move without moving the trunk very much at all, but moving the legs really a lot, and the feet. So you could, Grisha does it by holding a tray with, let's say, tea, right? Filled to the brim, and she's going to serve the tea. It's all down there, you see. So these things are learned without going through a process of doing any real learning. You simply, as a child, grow up and you see these things, and then you imitate your culture. And that might be good, depends, right? But usually it's not. The reason, if you watch your yoga teacher and try to put on what they do, put on the teacher's body, which is what people often try to do, the correct means what's the teacher doing? Well, then it takes you out of your own sense of yourself. And what do you need to do to learn it? So movement science isn't what to do. It's what do you need to sense? What are your sensations and how organized are they related to movement? Okay? Does that make sense? If you don't sense yourself, it does no good to imitate something. And then if you can really sense yourself, it's almost miraculous. Why? Because if you're, let's say, sitting to standing, or any activity, but let's say sitting to standing, well, there's a certain amount of effort involved. A certain amount of effort, and there's work. The work is, what's your weight, and how do you move the weight from the sitting position to standing? It takes a certain amount of effort. But the work is there. It's the same, right? For everybody, the work is about the same. The effort could be hugely different in a group like yourself. You might find, some of you might find, oh, that's pretty easy. It's almost effortless to do that work of lifting your body up and sitting down. It's almost nothing. Other people might find, oh God, I'm glad that they put armrests on the chairs so I can push and use my arms to help me stand. You see? Which becomes a habit, and the more you have that habit, the weaker you get. But that's an old-fashioned way of saying it, so I have to apologize for even saying that. It's old-fashioned, and it's inaccurate. Really, what happens is, by using whatever habits you have that might be inefficient, and building them more and more, those inefficient habits, into older age, things get more difficult. So how do you change your age, if you will? How do you do that? Again, it's through learning. By feeling yourself and trying to feel things that you maybe never noticed before. So do you want to try? Yeah? So, just observe, just as you're sitting now. Can you feel which side of your pelvis might be pushing a little harder into the chair? That means it may be the sensation that one of your buttocks is bearing more weight than the other, or your sitting bones, if you can tune into your skeletal self. One of your sitting bones might be pushing harder than the other side. And just say, which was it more? Are you more to the left or more to the right? That's not a political question, by the way. Could be, though. So how many people find more weight to the right? Okay, how many find more weight to the left? Okay, now, without moving, just tell me if you could feel both of your feet and the distance from your feet and ankles to your sitting bones and pelvis. That distance creates the effort or less effort, more or less effort, to do the work of standing and sitting. Yeah? And so the goal is to make standing and sitting same work, let's keep the same work, has to be, but how can we do it so that we reduce the effort involved to do it? That's a goal for all movement. Do whatever you do with less effort. So, sense that distance from your feet and ankles to your pelvis, and now what I'd like you to do is arrange your body so that you could sit without leaning back into your chair, but don't move your feet. Yeah, but just don't lean back in the chair. So you'll have to roll your pelvis maybe a little forwards, right? So that your back can more easily come forwards. Now, could you sit back again, but don't slump back. Think that you're going to keep yourself, whatever height you are now, a certain length that occurs when you come forwards, right? Now, could you keep that length and go to the back of the chair again? Rest back. And now come forwards again. And feel, how do you do that? What muscles do you feel you're using to come forwards, and then what muscles are you using to go back? Although they're probably the same muscles. Some people find it's easier to go forwards. And some people find it's easier to go backwards. See, which way is easier? So you're kind of rolling on your pelvis, rolling on your sits bones. Could you make that movement larger so that you don't just go forwards to sit upright, but you go forwards almost like you're going to lean forwards, but you're not going to bend anything, right? You're staying with your head and pelvis in a line through your back. And you rock forwards. You see, how far forwards can you go comfortably and then go all the way to the back of the chair again? So it's quite a large movement. And now, that's a good speed you're doing. That's great. It's good. The slower you go to start doing anything, the better, if you want to learn to feel things. If you move too fast, it overcomes most sensations. Good. Now stay in the middle somewhere, where you're not leaning forwards or back. You might even find that's a little bit easier right now. Anybody feel that? Or at least more clear. Now, tune into your feet. By now, I understand the average age of somebody here in Rossmoor is 76, is that right? Yeah? Okay, so by that time, you lose over 50% of your sensory feedback from your feet, from your lower extremities and your feet. That's a large reason why older people fall more. Now that sounds terrible. It's like, oh my God, I lost half of my sensation. What am I going to do? Well, most people don't use their brain to tune into their proprioception anyway. So whether they're get feedback from their feet or not is irrelevant. They never had it. They never paid attention to it. I mean, how many kids do you even see? People in your 20s and 30s. Happens all the time. Or that kind of thing. So it's easy for people to have the larger movements that way, but it could also be just this. Not tuned in. So, noticing that where your feet are right now, could you put your hands on your knees? The thigh by the knee. You have the thigh portion, where it's easy. And now while you're there, sitting forwards, could you simply take your right leg and rock so that the ankle goes that way and then comes back again. Right? That's all you're going to do. Lift the ankle on the, yep. Good. No, not the heel, not the toes, but move the ankle. No. Look. Yeah, no. That's not the movement at all. It's not this movement. This is a falling movement. This is where people fall. It's the ankle. It feels that way, right, when you're falling. All of a sudden, it's not there. So, as you move across your foot from left to right, so you're pressing on the outside edge of the foot a little bit, and then you come back, and you might even go the other way and lift the outside edge of the foot, if that's possible. And feel as you do that, this is just your right leg, right? That's important to stay on one side. Is your knee going left and right? Okay. Does anybody have a knee that doesn't go left and right? Raise your hand if that's true for you. Nobody. Okay. Well, that would be the first thing to understand the danger of falling. So we're going to make a change that you might find presents a lot of problems that can be alleviated with this one thing. Keep your hand on the right leg. Stay forward, sitting up. Now, think you're going to put the hand there to make sure that your right leg doesn't move at all. It stays centered. And you're going to do the same movement of the ankle, lifting the inside, the outside. So as you rock back and forth, can you have an independent movement of the ankle that doesn't require that the knee move? Everybody could do that easily at some point in your life. This would seemingly be an irrelevant movement lesson for most people who are younger. But that's what happens as you get older. And that means if let's say you're outdoors and it's a rainy day, something like that, a slippery surface, and if you don't have the ability to go, oops, no, that's not good. That is where the fall starts. The ankle goes over, the knee goes in the same direction, right? The knee goes the same direction. And that's what brings the pelvis over and down you go. Now in actuarial tables, insurance companies know more about falling than the medical world. They do, they keep track of these things. Most people, there are forwards, some people fall, but the number of times that happens is about 30 to 35% going forwards. Backwards, which really sounds scary more, maybe, that's 10% or less, 8 to 10%. So where do the falls happen? Out to the side. But the most prominent area is the diagonal. 50% of falls are diagonals, meaning you go forwards and off to the side. Down you go. Now the other thing about balance that's really important to understand is to unify, as I had already said, but to unify your proprioceptive self, what you can feel about your movement, with your teleceptors. So I would have standing on one leg means nothing in terms of your falling that way that I'm describing, where the ankle goes and all that. So what you really need to do, put some stuff on your floor. Just throw things on your floor that would be in your way, you know? Just anything. You can throw books there, put glasses there, whatever. And then walk right over that. How do you do it? How do you maneuver through that stuff? Right? Because it would say, if you go that way, now that's in the way. That's a good practice to do. The other practice that I have people do, and it seems to bring the most result, take a book and read it. While you're reading the book, go for a walk through that obstacle course you built. Right? Oh yeah. Teleceptors are out there. Now why? Why is tied to the diagonal falling? So, I'm in a restaurant, let's say. It's crowded. There are tables all around, you know, all that kind of thing, a crowded restaurant. Great meal. Get up from my chair. I'm going to walk towards the door. And over I go. And I'm fine. There's somebody sitting at another table who recognizes me. Somebody I know. And they go, "Hey, Dr. Wildman." I'm going, that's it. I'm walking, I'm comfortable, but now I turn. And in that turning, you go down diagonally. That's the most common, again, it's the most 50% of all falls are diagonal forward. Right? Off to one side or the other. And that's a situation because once your teleceptors are engaged, I heard the person, I want to see the person, but I can't feel myself when I do that. That means that your proprioceptive self, your inner sense, doesn't match the movements you're doing in the world and how you need to respond or want to respond. Like, hello, right? It could be just, okay, they say your name, you look around, you stop, hi, no big deal. Right? But that person has to be able to have their proprioception available in understanding what they need to do to avoid falling or tripping or whatever. They have to tune into that, even though their teleceptors are looking at this person and saying hello back to them. That's why it's good to read a book and go through an obstacle course. And most of my clients and my patients, what they do is they build obstacle courses that are different. It's fun. You just all kinds of junk in your house. Put all that junk on the floor. And sink it, you walk through it. And once you get used to it, you have to build a new one. Right? You have to build a new obstacle course. You could use the same pieces, just move them in a different way. And try doing that. When you master that, read a book and do the same thing while you're reading a book. Read it out loud. So you really get the teleceptors working, the organized activities through the mouth. Your brain is consumed by what you do with your tongue in your mouth, neurologically. So if you read it out loud, and you walk through an obstacle course, that's difficult. And you'll get used to it. And then when you go outside for a walk, it won't make much difference if there's a curb there or not. It's no big deal. Because you've been practicing at home to do things that are much more difficult. So, back to your ankles. Sit forwards again. Now, feel the distance between your feet on the floor and your pelvis in the chair. Just get a sense of that distance. And here's what I'd like you to do. Some of you are already doing it. Could you put your feet, both of them, a little more forwards? Now, stand up that way, with your feet forwards. Not so easy, is it? Yeah. Okay, stop. So now, move your feet, not back to where they were, but move them closer to you than they were. So the distance between your feet and ankles and your pelvis is reduced. Yeah? And rock forwards again. And see, is it easier to stand up? Yes? Any no's? Anybody with no? Usually in a group like this, would be a couple people. And then there's things we can work with. So you see now, you don't need strong legs. You don't need to use your hands. Because you're doing something where the workload of sitting and standing, the effort is reduced. But it can only be reduced because your brain has an opportunity to tune in and feel something. And here's the good news. Here's the good news. Even though you lose sensory feedback from your feet and lower extremities as you get older, since most people don't use their proprioception very much because they're imitating movement, they're moved poorly anyway, then what happens is they aren't using most of their brain. If you're learning something, things I was just talking about, the obstacle course and what we're doing now, if you learn something, you're increasing your neurological capacity. Your neuromotor system is throwing more neurons into it to be aware of what you're actually doing and what could reduce the effort to do what you do, right? If that happens, you could end up as a much older adult moving better than most young people, better than you did when you were in your 20s and 30s. Getting down to the floor, not you know that system that there's all these articles that have come out. It's interesting. There are international studies. They've done everywhere. The Russians have done it. We've done it peacefully. The Canadians have done it. The Australians have done it. Many Japanese have done it. And here's the deal: how long does it take a person, an older person or a younger person? It could be anybody. How long does it take a person to sit or lie on the floor from standing, all the way down? And how long does it take to get back up again? You've probably heard this study, some of you, right? It's a kind of famous study. The idea is, by tracking people and seeing how fast did they go up and down, they studied when did they actually die. And it seems that you could have some prediction of longevity by saying the speed of going up and down. When people do it slowly, the people who did do it slowly, in all of these studies in every country, they just didn't live as long as people who at the same age, when they were tested, went up and down quickly. So, falling is tough because our relationship to the floor is a little scary and unfamiliar. Many people look at the floor and that's way down there. And you don't sit on the floor, you don't lie on the floor, it's just something, you walk on it and hope you don't trip. So, what if you thought, maybe today, after this is over, you thought, gee, I'd like to get a little exercise. Should I do strengthening exercises or stretching exercises or what should I do? How about a coordination exercise? Because that's really, right, back to Steph Curry just briefly. Basketball hoop is about this big. The diameter is about that big. The ball diameter is about that big. From here to here. He's 30 feet away. If he's not having somebody defending him, he can sink 99 out of 100 shots. When you think about that, the hoop is not much bigger than the ball. And the distance is, do you think that's a matter of strength? He could do that when he's a very young guy, and he hadn't built himself up yet. It's because he has proprioception. And when he's playing in a game, you have to have enough proprioception that you don't need to think about it. There's no time to think about it. It has to just be learned deeply. It's just there and it's available. So he needs the same things you need. So now, let's do this. Could you do the same movement? Put your hands on the knees again. Sit forwards. And could you rock your left foot from the outside to the inside, just like you did with the right one? And just feel that. To go slow enough to really feel how you do it. Again, the slower you go, the more you'll sense. But you have to sit forwards, or you mean anything. Okay, now pause. Could you do the right one again a few times? And just check which one feels easier to you. Which one can you keep your knee stable, and it doesn't go left or right at all? It might be easier on one side than the other. And only you can know that. Now, how many of you find it's easier to do that rocking of the foot on the right side? Right side open. Okay, how many find the left side is easier? How many find maybe they're equal? Yeah? Good. Okay. Now, your feet, again, closer to you. Just a little closer yet. Yeah? Rock forwards and back just a couple of times, as far forwards and back as you can go. But don't look down. When you rock forwards, keep your orientation out. Good. Keep going until you fall up over your feet. Just keep going until you, that's right, good. Yeah, don't use your hands. If you have to, okay, but try not to. Now, also, when your feet are so close together, it's a little tight. If your feet are really close to each other, it's harder. So think what the distance between your left and right foot. At least one foot should fit in there, at least. There you go. Easier? So all these little things help. And see, as you're going up and down now, is the effort reduced? So now we're going to do a couple of other things with this. The next time you go up and down, think that your intention is to stand up so you can look out those windows over there, those doors with glass. That you're going to rock and orient your body to face that way, not moving your feet. Right? You just simply, as you come up, you're going to curiously see what's there. Go up and down that way. Now change it. Decide you want to look over this way. Again, you don't move the feet, but you let any part of your body turn that you want to make it easy. If you just turn your head, it's going to be harder than if you also turn your chest a little bit with that direction. Now alternate. Look to the left one time, the next time look to the right. And each time rock forwards and back until you feel up and down becomes secondary. It's easy. You rest. Now when you rest, pause for a moment. Does rest mean, keep your rest in length. Rest as if you're ready to perform some action. And see, can you feel that, okay? You don't have to do it for half an hour or an hour or something, but can you feel comfortable without resting in the back of the chair? Now here's a way to test that, right? And this is kind of fun. It can be. Think of your pelvis as like a big ball, a large ball. And you know what's fun to do with the ball is bounce it. Could you, without standing up, good, could you perform a tiny movement of or yeah. Instead of dribbling a basketball, you'll be dribbling your pelvis. And just bounce up and down. You have to quickly then use your legs, not too much, but enough, right? You have to organize your trunk. If you slump, you can't do it. So that length is essential. Good. Up means just enough that somebody could pull a piece of paper out from under you. Right? There's just a little room there that they can do that. And, yeah. Now, a goal in this, let's say you're at home and you would like to do something like this. The goal would again be that you can do it easily, that you reduce effort. And that might take a little practice. But the practice will involve feeling what you need to do. There has to be a felt sense in order to improve that movement. Once you can bounce like that, sitting up becomes much easier, as you possibly are feeling right now. Yes? It's easier to keep that length. It's impossible to bounce your pelvis if you're slumped. And also, it's the most certain way, because the arms would be in the way of doing this if you put them on your armrests. So you just don't. You'll learn that you don't need armrests. You want to eliminate that. I'll tell you why. If you use your arms to do what your legs should be doing, it gets worse as you age. You become more and more dependent on that. And your legs, yes, the muscles will get weaker, but the important thing is you'll lose your coordination, which is a skill. What you're learning right now is a skill. You're acquiring a skill. And it's a skill maybe nobody ever taught you. It's bizarre. Truly, it's bizarre. Sometimes it makes me angry. We have a culture of sitting. We sit in chairs, we slump in chairs, we work our computers in chairs, we have conversations in chairs, we eat in chairs, everything. We watch television in a chair or a sofa or whatever. And then hour after hour, day after day, then we're benumbed to our senses. We're mostly using our teleceptors to do something, like watch television, you certainly are. Right? Or working at a computer. So, how do you overcome that? Well, by learning what movements can you do, like just simply bounce sitting in a chair. Can you do things like that and make it easier? Can you come to sit to stand as like a morning wake up? To recapture the senses and movements, the sensations and the movements that you had when you were younger. Now, younger means a lot. When I'm teaching this as a course, and people are doing many movement lessons like this, one of the things that people often ask is, well, how many times should I do it? Don't count. Don't get your mind on numbers. People, the whole fitness world is how many reps can you do? Right? How many repetitions can you do? You're not paying attention to yourself. You're paying attention to an abstract number in your head. So feel, how do you do what you do? That's the goal. To reduce internal resistance. Here's something you need to know. This is an important anatomical fact. This is an important thing. You have, your brain fires all the muscle fibers in your legs, or a number of muscle fibers in your legs. And down you go, and up you go, all that, okay? But what if it's overusing it? What if your brain doesn't really know efficiency? It can't feel that, it never did. It never did. So then what happens is, the buttocks, they don't work very much. It's all in the thighs. Oh, that hurts my knees. I have trouble with my knees, right? That kind of thing. So I'll go off to this side because it's my left knee, or right knee, whatever it is. But what if you actually could feel, when I go forwards to sit down, I should be going forwards, right? See, if you think I'm going to sit down back there, now I'm in an imbalanced position. That's what leads to thump back into the chair, right? That idea. It's because your brain has not learned, you haven't learned how to do it. So you could think, can I feel my pelvis goes back, but my chest and my head, I go forwards mostly. And now I'm counterbalanced. And I can just keep going down. When I come up, now I push my pelvis forwards, as if somebody went, boom, up you go. So you eliminate the idea, because it's an idea, it's an image, inappropriately learned in sitting, that to get up and down is up and down. No, it's forwards and back. It's the difference between walking up a steep hill or taking a switchback trail, right? It's far less work. So, that's not going to work. That won't work. So you have to feel, where is the balance? Where can I take my chest and my pelvis in opposite directions so that the weight's exactly on my feet where I started? Exactly there, that you could feel that. That's the challenge. So how many repetitions should you do? You should do enough to sense one. When you go, I feel what I'm doing, I know what I'm doing, and it's easier now. Then you can stop. You've done enough repetitions. Do you have to do it every day? No. You do it as frequently as you need to maintain a new image of how to move. A truly balanced image of how to move. Leg strength should be minimal for anybody to sit and stand if they have a good balance. So now, could you put your right foot a little ahead of your left foot. And you might even move your left foot back foot. You might. And rock back and forth a couple times. Just a couple times rock back and forth. Feel again your pelvis and how it's where you're rolling. And then when you feel you're going far enough forwards, let yourself just fall up. You have to wait to fall over your feet. You have to really, now, wait, stop. I'm talking to you. Sorry. If you keep your hands tucked in tightly, that's not going to be helpful. If you're having a little trouble, reach forwards with your hands, almost like you're going, you're on a stage talking to an audience. You reach out, you go forwards, and let the arms carry you. There we go. That's a lot more effective than pushing on the armrest of a chair. And once you do that, by reaching forwards with your arms, eventually you won't need to. It's getting easier, isn't it? I'm watching people look at it, it's just getting easier. Now stop and standing. Next time you're up, just stay there. So now, we started off just moving our ankle left and right? Raising the outside and inside of the ankle. Could you please do that with the right foot and standing? And see, as you do that, can you avoid swaying your body left and right? That you're at least your head through to your pelvis is pretty much in the same place as you do that movement of the foot. Okay. Now pause and do the right leg, the left leg, the left foot. Same thing, rock it. And can you do that without swaying left and right? So that movement you're making of the pelvis left and right, you don't need to do that. Can you just differentiate what you need to move the ankle so that the ankle isn't tied, if you will, tied by habit into your movements of your pelvis and legs. It's not that easy, is it? It takes a little. Now, could you do both? Yeah, do both. And nothing moves upstairs. Not even your belt might move slightly, but very little. Very little movement of the pelvis even. It's just as well as you can differentiate the ankles and feet from the rest of your body. Okay, good. Now, sit down again and sit slowly. Good. Wonderful. You used your arms to counterbalance. Yay! That's a great way to sit down. A lot of people have more trouble sitting down. There's reasons that I don't want to go into, it takes too much time. But if you just think, I got up that way, and I can go down that way. I have some patients because they're really bad shape. I have the practice doing it by having a therapist, who has to be trained, how to help them up by pulling through their arms. Right? Once they learn that, then can they just reach? Then can they simply use their arms. Time the movement of the arm going forwards with the lifting of the pelvis. It's timing. Right? It's timing that makes it work. Yeah. Okay? Could you now come to standing? Everyone just come to standing. Easy. Ooh, nice. Nice speed, good. Now, how to reinforce the posture that's required for good balance. Could you just go, you bounced your pelvis on the chair, now think you're going to bounce on your heels. And you'll feel as you bounce, you have to drop the weight to the heels. You won't break any, it's like lowering. Drop it, and you feel like a shock going up to your head. You should feel it in your head. It'll rattle your teleceptors a little bit. Right? But do it, but change the rhythm. Maybe 1, 2, 3. do that? Why do that? Here's why. Could you just slow, stand up and slow? Do it now. It feels kind of pathetic. It doesn't really get up to your head in the same way. So when you do this little bouncing through the heel, what happens is that shock, as it kind of is, that means that you're building bone, first of all. So usually, a really useful thing to do as we age. And this is the simplest way to reinforce bone construction. And that's going to go on all the way up through your spine. All the way up to, in fact, the first cervical vertebra, below your head. See, now, some of you might have bouncing parties. I was told by somebody that they tried this. This was a woman who, she's 87 years old, and so she was in such bad shape, and she had such fun learning all these things and improving that what she tried to do with bounce sitting in a chair, at the dinner table, she tried to eat. Well, she was bouncing. Okay, now, sit down again. So remember, down means forwards with the chest, backwards with the pelvis. Okay, up again, the pelvis goes forwards, and now you go up. You go up because your pelvis goes forwards, and your orientation is out. So, something to eliminate. Okay, I have it, I'm just a request. Don't look when you're sitting. Even in an unfamiliar place, don't go, where's the chair? Where's the chair? You're using your teleceptors. No. If you walk towards the chair, you know where it is. It's a matter of, can you feel it? If you're a little odd, oh, let me brush back there. By the way, your average age here is 76. I'm 75 and a half. My time period to go up and down from the floor is 4 seconds. You can learn almost anything. You could learn anything. But what you're really learning to do, of course, in this is change habits. Because most habits that we have are inefficient. Again, it comes because of monkey see, monkey do. We learn to be inefficient because we're watching people being inefficient, and our brain incorporates that. Incorporate means to make it into flesh. Not a corporation. To incorporate it, it becomes whole with you. It's hard to change that, but you can. Countless surgeries have been saved doing this. My referrals almost entirely come from orthopedic surgeons. Because they know, this back surgery, I don't know if we should do it. Go see him, have a few sessions, and then let's see if you still need that surgery. It works. Okay, so just so you have a context of this, this is basically the construction of this lesson that I just gave you. It's basically a Feldenkrais lesson. I mean, it's my invention, if you will, but it's done in a style of the Feldenkrais method. He was one of my major teachers. He's, you could say, the greatest movement scientist and originator of some movement sciences in the 20th century. And he developed 45-minute long movement lessons, 1,200 of them. Dozens for the voice that are used with professional singers, dozens just for fingers and hands to work with people with infirmities and narrow accidents they've had, or people who really get a discoordination. For example, sloppy handwriting, difficulty with the piano, that kind of, can't learn it anymore, it's too hard, that kind of thing. Postural issues, balance issues, all of that. Enormous construction. And in fact, I studied with him for 10 years, until he died. And that was something that was a great enabler. What does it say? So, we could do many more lessons, right? You just had a part of one, but we could do 1,199 more. So one of my goals here, okay, so I'm clear with this. Part of why I'm here is I would have a class here. Some people have asked for that. To have a class here at Rossmoor where you could use some of these lessons, where every time you have the class, you don't build from one lesson to another. You have entirely different lessons. You come into the room, maybe you've done 100 lessons, you know the method you think, and it's all, we're ready to go and practice one. It's more important to go, the next class is to be approached like a child, learning something new, because you don't know what the teacher's going to give you. You can't rely on what you did in the last lesson. That's how kids learn. They keep experimenting, they try the wrong thing, and learn that's the wrong thing. If no one's there to tell them it's the wrong thing, it's not the wrong thing. It's just a different way. So I want to encourage you to get down to the floor and back up again, okay? That's your takeaway. You can practice this, of course, the sitting stuff that we just did, and standing, and all of that. But really, get familiar with the floor if you want to reduce what I understand you're here for. I was told this whole thing was happening because in a survey they asked you what you want, and 85% of the residents here said fear of falling is their greatest fear. So, is balance just a mechanical issue? Or is it an emotional issue? What if you didn't feel the fear of falling anymore? Wouldn't you have more confidence? Wouldn't you feel better? Would you enjoy everything more? You could go for walks without fear. You could go to a new place and not go, oh geez, I hope I can do that. Because you've already walked over obstacles, you know you can do that. Another trick, by the way, with obstacles, what some people do when they master obstacles, go backwards over them. Backwards. Whoa, what's back there? Feel it, feel it. What's back there? This one's over here. Okay, this one's way over there. And the safety of your house. And start with anyway. But get familiar with the floor. Don't look down at it and think, oh my God, I hope I don't hit it. Right? I hope my hip can take it.